Louise Harris, is the publishing industry fair to authors? What's your answer on that? Is the music industry fair to its artists? Louise wrote her first poem when she was 12, submitted it, got $5 for it, set her on her path. She went to University of Maryland as a journalist, loved writing, eventually found out that she loves editing as well. She likes correcting others' work. She has a great company that does just that. But we talk a lot about the industry. And if you're thinking about being an author, what are some of the things you should contemplate? What should you expect? Marketing is a big part of it. Everybody brings up J.K. Rowling, the billionaire, an extreme example. Most authors do not make a lot of money. They make a lot of money, or if they make any money, it's with speaking engagements and other engagements thereafter. But a great conversation with Louise Harris about this industry, what to look for. Should you be published? Should you not be published? What should you expect in the process of editing, of writing? She did write a lot. We talk about fiction writing and where characters go. Fiction writers just fascinate me. Louise knows the beginning and end and lets the middle happen. That's just fascinating to me. Great conversation with Louise Harris. Thanks for watching and listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because of working way too much. Before you know it, I found myself 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. Took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People think there's some secret. Ask me, how'd you lose that weight? Like there's some secret. There is no secret. How'd I lose the weight? Just one word, discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends, colleagues convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission: how do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision: growth through learning from others. Very, very excited to talk to you, Louise Harris. Thank you so much for your time. Are writers born or are they made?
I was born. I knew from the time I was very young that I wanted to be a writer.
Really?
Yes, but I have met others that came to writing later in life. So I think those are the ones that are made. But my grandmother loved to read, and we would be on the beach in Cape May in Wildwood, New Jersey, and my whole family would be there, and my grandmother would be sitting in her chair, and she'd have her romance novel in her hand, and she would get to the really good part, and her leg would start to shake because she was so excited about it. And that's what made me fall in love with romance novels specifically. But I always wanted to tell people the information that they needed to know. So that is also why I became a journalist. But I wanted to provide people the joy that they get from reading. So.
In this fast-paced MSP landscape, how do you stay ahead? Introducing MSPinfluencer.com, your ultimate hub for MSP news, insights, and community connection powered by Forza Dash. More than 75,000 MSPs subscribe to our MSP Influencer Pulse weekly newsletter, staying informed and ahead of industry trends. Tune in to emerging podcasts from Joey Pinz and leading MSP voices, offering essential tips, powerful insights, and success stories. Explore our multi-authored blogs, crafted specifically for MSP leaders, delivering fresh perspectives and actionable strategies. Celebrate excellence with the industry-leading Forza-MSP Influencer Awards, recognizing innovation, leadership, and impact in the MSP community. Join thousands of MSP professionals who trust MSPinfluencer.com to grow their business and expand their networks. MSPinfluencer.com, where today's MSP leaders connect, collaborate, and conquer, all powered by the Forza Dash platform, helping MSP vendors work effectively with MSPs and helping MSPs grow. But at one point, I think you said after college, during college, you realized that you like to edit people's work more than read, or more than write, excuse me.
Well, yes. When I was going through college, I was still going as a journalist, but I realized that I had a better gift of editing. I was still a good writer, but I was an excellent editor. I could see other people's mistakes more than I could see my own. And so I believe that editing brings the joy of writing to other people because they make the words better.
Hmm.
So I still feel that I am bringing other people joy. But I also have written romance novels, so I kind of do both. I am an author, I am an editor. I love both of them, and I combine it and mix it in whatever way I can. So
Hmm. Did you ever meet Jim Henson when you were at University of Maryland?
no, I did not. But I was at Maryland about 4 years after he graduated, I think. But he was well known on the campus, and so he would come and speak occasionally to uh, for like a seminar or something on campus. And I never really had an opportunity to attend one of those, but he has a on Maryland is the mascot is a turtle, and there is a statue on the campus of Jim Henson holding Kermit and Testudo the turtle. So, and but yeah, he's one of the most famous people from Maryland. Another one is Connie Chung,
Huh.
and she went through the journalism program. But she used to say that she did not graduate from Maryland. She didn't like people to know that she graduated from Maryland. So most of
Huh.
and until recently she was asked to give a commencement speech, and then she's like, "Oh yeah, I will. I'm an alumni of Maryland." But she did. But so a lot of people that went through the program didn't like her because she wouldn't admit that she was in Maryland.
Hmm. Well, my daughter's graduating there very shortly, and Kermit the Frog is the keynote speaker.
I heard that. And a lot of people were making fun of that, but I can see the reason because Jim Henson was such a big deal. But the person who did the voice was Jim Henson, and
Right.
he's dead. And so there's still that disconnect. What's she graduating in?
Science. Yeah, science. She wants to be a virologist, study viruses.
Oh, okay. Good for
Yeah.
her.
And the statue there is in front of the stamp, the big kind of
Right.
the
Damn
big
student union. Yeah.
student union. Yeah, yeah, I've seen it before. Yeah, it's a great campus, and it's going to be interesting next week. I'm looking forward to it. Let's see what happens. What do you enjoy more, though? Do you enjoy more the writing or the editing?
I enjoy writing the fiction.
The fiction.
I I enjoy the editing of everything else.
I see. And what's the difference between a fiction and a nonfiction writer? Are they similar? Are they?
They're not they are the principles are the same, and they are similar in their convictions, but a fiction writer has more imagination, I think,
Mm,
because a nonfiction writer has to stick to the facts and the research. And I think that's a little bit of why I don't like writing nonfiction as much, because I have to research things and then I have to write and I have to stick to the facts. But in when I'm writing my fiction, anything is possible, and I can do things that aren't really possible in the real world for
mm.
physics or whatever, but I can make it possible. So
There's a certain element of reporting things when you're nonfiction because you're
yeah.
interpreting what happened. But I mean, Louise, I've spoken to fiction writers, and it's just you got to let me in. You got to pull the curtains back a little bit here. I don't understand how they have a character and they kind of outline something roughly, but then they say the pen takes over and the character goes in a direction that they had no plan for. It's so wonderful to me. I can't understand it. I'm sure this has happened to you.
Yes, it does happen. And I know a lot of writers that say that. I think what happens is you're in a zone
Mm.
and you're just typing away. Or for me, I actually handwrite everything first. So I will write out my books handwritten. So I'll be sitting and I'll be writing, and then what I had in my mind will not be what I actually end up
Hmm.
doing, or how the scene actually continues. And I go back and I reread it. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's how it got changed. But a lot of times it's because you're not really thinking; you're just letting your mind be creative. And but there are people that they talk to their characters and say, okay, what would you like to do
Mm,
next? And
mm.
then they get an idea. So I'm not like that, though. I don't talk to my characters, but I do do understand how sometimes they take over. Because you're not really paying attention to what you're writing. That's, I think, what happens.
Hmm. Do you storyboard? Do you mind map? Do you outline your
I
characters?
I outline for the nonfiction, but I for my books, I know the beginning and I know the end, but what happens in the middle, I just kind of let it happen.
Wow.
Yeah. And there's other authors who will outline it very specifically. So it really depends on the author, but I know the beginning and end and let the middle be the middle. So I guess that's one of the reasons why I get surprised with what the characters are doing because I don't know the middle.
Let it happen. Do you
Yes.
do you believe in the muse?
Yes.
How so?
Things will inspire me. Like I will be at a restaurant and I love to watch people in, especially like Starbucks or a cafe where they're just talking to others. I tend to eavesdrop. That's the reporter in me. but, but I will imagine these people that I meet either on the street or and imagine them in a situation uh, and so then they become a character in my books. And the other way that I get characters are I will have someone who does something to me that I didn't like and they become a villain in my book,
Hmm.
or I will honor my teachers by putting teachers in my books, their names, not the actual teacher. Um, but one my first book, a teacher actually became the villain because he was um, in high school. He didn't give me what I thought I deserved, so
Wow.
I got back at him by making him the villain. So of my first novel. So,
So you say you have the beginning and you have the end and you let the middle happen. Sometimes when you let that middle happen, does it change what you had in mind for the end?
no, it usually works out to where the end is supposed to go. Once in a while, the climax will be slightly different, but it'll still be what I had in my mind
Hmm.
as the climax, and then I just pull it all together and resolve the book. So
And getting back to the muse, so you believe that I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it does happen, but it's not intentional. You have to kind of go out and force it, look at people's. I know Hemingway did that, right? He constantly went out to
yes,
people and let them kind of
Hemingway was
inspire him.
yeah he loved Paris cafes and things like
Right,
that, and he
right.
would observe people all the time. It's for me, it is observing what happens, but it's also observing nature too. Like
Hmm,
I will be walking a trail on a vacation and I will start to see how to transcribe what I'm seeing into a book or not necessarily a book like a setting or um, all of my novels are set in Philadelphia because that's where I grew up. And but I last year we were in Casper, Wyoming, and we were walking on a trail, and there was all these pretty colors, and so I was trying to describe them so that the next time I needed that scene, I would have it in my head. So
hmm.
it isn't only about watching people, it's also about what's around me. But that's mainly because I like to appreciate what's around me, the nature and the people and all different things that are around me. I want to appreciate it. So,
I always go back to this story, Louise, where Bob Dylan wrote a song along the Watchtower and recorded it, and within 2 weeks, he saw Jimi Hendrix perform it and said, "That was never my song. It belongs to him. That's the way it should be played," and he never played it again. So it seems as if the muse was incorrect. Have you ever gotten inspiration where you thought it wasn't yours?
hmm, I don't think so. But I have done ghostwriting for other people. But when I do the ghostwriting, one of my most recent was a thriller set in Louisiana in the bayou. Most of I was doing the writing and I was coming up with the ideas, but it was his plot and his he was helping me with what he envisioned. It's just that he's an engineer and he couldn't really
Mm,
get past the
mm,
creative. He couldn't be creative enough, so he needed my help with that. But I never felt that the words I was writing were my own. I always thought they were his
huh.
because it was his book. But the funny
Wow.
thing about him being an engineer is he was trying to stick to physics. And I was, like I
Mm,
mentioned before, anything can happen in fiction. And I was trying to explain to him, no, I don't need to have an actual government building. It can be set where I want it to be set. Because he said, there's no water anywhere near that government building. And I was like, this is fiction. So,
well, talk about art meets science. I mean,
yes,
that's it right there, right?
exactly. So,
And Louise, how do you? It seems to me you're a pure artist. I mean, does science ever come into any of your
oh, I'm a
processes?
scientist too. I
Really
actually wrote for a lot of environmental newsletters. And
interesting.
that was I was an editor of a lot of environmental newsletters. So I do know the science as well as I
Mm,
know the creativity. And I'm also very practical when it comes to business because so many authors I meet, they don't see it as a business. They see it
mm,
as, oh, okay, I'm going to paint today or I'm going to write today, but they don't see that everything involves marketing and you have to market yourself and be business oriented, and otherwise you're not going to make any money
mm,
on your
mm.
books. So I think I got that from my parents because my dad was an engineer and
Oh.
my and very practical in money, and my mom was very practical in money. So that idea that think of it as a business first and then your creative outlet second, that I think I got from my parents.
What should one expect if they're thinking about writing a book? Well, let's manage expectations here to an up and coming author.
The first thing they should expect is that it's going to be a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
It's not going to just be 2 days and they're done.
Mm,
The second thing is they have to be realistic about how many books they think they're going to sell.
mm,
I mean, it's very hard to become a best selling author, especially one like J.K. Rowling, which everyone always says, well, she's a billionaire because she wrote all these books about Harry Potter. But, you know, some of the other best selling authors are not billionaires.
right.
Um, but that I think is the thing that a lot of people come to me about. They have these expectations that they're going to be a millionaire as soon as they write their books. And I have to dial it down a little bit, saying, not necessarily. And it also depends on how much they market it, whether they get that best selling um, status or not. I have a lot of authors who don't want to do local events because they don't want to be out in the hot sun. They don't want to, they don't know how to be on video or do a podcast like this. Um, and that limits how many books they're going to sell because they're not going to put themselves out there.
Hmm. Okay, so they decide to write a book. Let's talk about being published and self-publishing. What are your pros and cons there?
Well, the traditional publishers are good, but like I said about being a best-selling author, it's very hard to get into the traditional publishers.
Hmm.
You have to be famous. You have to definitely have a platform where you can market your books. You have to have an idea that is saleable, because if it's a memoir, for example, they don't want it. So I actually usually recommend that people publish it through Ingram Spark and Amazon. And I do that also because of the royalties, because the other drawback to traditional publishers is you get very little royalties. And any books that they give to a bookstore and then the bookstore only sells one out of the 25, those 24 are counted against your royalties, and that's something that people don't understand.
Yeah.
But when you go through Ingram Spark, and it's the largest wholesaler, and therefore you're still getting into bookstores and libraries. If you use, and then for the electronic book, Amazon's the largest for the electronic book with the Kindle, because you can put the app on any device. So I recommend that they do it through Kindle for the electronic version, and the print version through Ingram, so that they get the bookstores and libraries. And I feel that if it's done well, you can make a lot of money um, doing it that way.
You can make a lot of money purely on the book sales or
No, you
speaking.
have to speak.
Yes, yes,
The
yes,
speaking engagements
yes.
sell the books, and the books sell the speaking engagements.
Right.
And you have to do the events like I was talking about. I do a lot of in the in the spring and fall in Florida, because it's very hot, so they don't have as many in the summer. Where I will have my table and I will get my name and brand awareness out there. And I usually sell 4 or 5 at those events, but I do a lot of them because it is for brand awareness. And then people will find me on Amazon and buy it later if they don't buy it at the table. And I have had a lot of people um, come up to me and say, "Hey, weren't you at this other event?" And I say, "Yeah, I probably was." So I am starting to get known, but I always think that you have to be known first in your area before you can venture out nationwide or worldwide. And one of the things that I have
Hmm.
found is these podcast interviews that I do, I always see a spike in UK sales.
UK sales,
Yes,
really?
UK sales. I don't know why, but it it must be a lot of UK people like to listen to podcasts. But
Interesting. Okay, so we've decided to go, probably self-published, and so now we've got this great idea, and we start writing, and we just write, 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 and after 3 or 4 months, come up with 50,000, 60,000 words. What's the next step?
well, during the writing process, you should also be marketing, be-
Ah.
because, and this is actually a mistake a lot of authors make. They don't start marketing until they actually have a book.
Hmm.
But by that time, it's too late. You need to build that buzz while you're writing it, so that when it's launched, you have already people waiting for it and clamoring for it. So while you're writing, you should be talking to people in your network and tell them about it and what they can expect, and build up a following. And um,
Let's talk about editing now. I mean, is there such thing as edit fatigue?
I think there's probably some editors that get burnout.
Yeah.
I don't, because I enjoy reading what other people write. So, but you, I think the ones that went into it as not their dream job, I think are probably the ones that end up getting burnout.
Hmm.
The one, in my case, it was something I always wanted to do. And I have done different types of editing in my career. before I got to the book publishing. But I actually worked for a small publisher in Baltimore. And so I did do book editing even while before I was actually a author. So I worked for a small publisher. I also edited newsletters, like I mentioned. So I did different editing. And then as my business evolved, as technology evolved, so did my business. And then I
Hmm.
started editing things like blogs and press releases and other things for marketing and marketing brochures and that kind of thing. So I think that's what kept me fresh is I wasn't always doing the exact same thing throughout my career.
Hmm.
And now with each person's book, it's always different. Even if it's the same genre, it's still going to be different because someone else wrote it.
Hmm.
So that keeps it entertaining to me as well. And I like to read. So
And is it possible for a book to be edited too much? Give it to one editor,
yes.
then another. That's what I meant by editing fatigue. It's just
Oh, okay.
it gets to a certain point where
Yes.
how much can you?
Where yes, and I actually have a client right now who I thought I was done. I had done 3 versions of it, and normally I have to do the layout as well. But in his case, he has a graphic designer doing it, so I don't have to do the layout. So it's straight editing. And uh, I thought I was done, and then he sends it back to me and says, "Okay, can you correct these proofing mistakes?" Which that's fine. I understood that. And I'm like, "Okay." So I corrected the proofing, but he gave it to me. He converted it from PDF to Word, which smashed all the words together.
Uh,
So then I had to go back through it and edit it a fourth or fifth time. So I was like, I really don't want to do this anymore. I'm done with this
mm,
book. I want it out of my hair. So yes, and I have also known authors who they just can't get to the done. I want, they
mm,
always something else that they want to
mm,
add,
mm,
and that is another instance of no, it can be edited too many times because if you do edit it so many times, you're going to start putting mistakes in it because every
mm.
time you read through it, you might add like a T for where there isn't supposed to be a T. So, uh, so I think 3 times and then the final proofing, I think is all you really need.
I've heard you mention some great tools out there that could help with editing. The one just slips my mind. It's like built in the Word now.
Oh, PDF. Oh, right. I use for
Grammarly.
when I'm laying out a book, I'll use InDesign,
Ah,
and that's an Adobe product, and then you can convert it to a PDF. But you can also edit with Acrobat the PDF. So that's one thing I use. I use Word for the writing mostly. But there's other things like Grammarly and Script something or other. I forget what that one's called. But that help you check your grammar and structure and things like that. Now, I want to caution people on AI that
yeah.
you shouldn't actually use it for the whole book. You should just use it for generating ideas or checking grammar or something along those lines. Because if you use it for the whole book, Amazon actually will take it down. But also, there's whole issues about what is copyright free and what isn't, and what you own the copyright for and what you don't. So you should actually do the writing yourself, because then you don't get in those issues. And that actually is a trend right now because their AI is such a growing field, and there's cautions, but nobody's following them.
Mm,
And even New York Times is filing lawsuits against people's copy that they're violating its copyright. So
mm.
I just tell authors to be cautious when using AI. Because
So give me some more examples, Louise, of how authors should be marketing their book while it's in process. Going to shows, social media, I assume.
yeah, social media is a good one because you can. especially once you have a cover design, you can pop that on your social media regularly and say, hey, watch for this book coming out. Or another thing that people do on social media is they'll take a sentence from a chapter just to whet people's appetite, or they'll
Mm.
even post a whole chapter, or they'll give away a chapter to whet people's appetite. You can also have book clubs where you can get people's feedback and say, this is what I'm working on. What do you think should happen? And um, you can also do it on your email list. If you're gathering people's names on emails, you can do certain tips that are in the book. If it's nonfiction or if it's fiction, you can say something that the character is going to do, again, whetting their appetite.
Hmm.
As many different avenues as you can, that's the better way to do it. uh, like if you're on a radio, or if you're doing a YouTube, if you have a YouTube channel, you can talk about it in the YouTube channel. So there are, and then of course, because I come from print, I always recommend print. So there's also press releases that you can send out. And although for the press release, you do want to wait until it's close to being out, uh, but as you're going along, you can just talk to people that in your if you're in a networking group, you can talk about, hey, I'm working on this book and this is what we're doing so far. And you know
And if it's nonfiction, a lot of the I see trends today where people making courses.
yes, I don't know enough about creating a course from the book, but I do know that it is a good way to sell your books. The only thing I've heard from other people that have created courses is it's as much work as actually writing the book.
Hmm.
So it might actually be better to do the course after the book is finalized and then work on the course. And then again, it's like the speaking engagement. One should sell the other. The book should sell the course, and the course should sell the books.
Hmm.
But also, that is something that is growing. But I've also heard from people that it is a it's hard to break into that field. I think the course, because they're again, it's a lot of work, just like starting a podcast, for example, or starting. They all seem to take a lot of back in the behind the scenes work. So, so I recommend it if you know how to do it. So,
Hey, Joey Pinz here. Want to take your podcast experience to the next level? I'm excited to invite you to become a YouTube member. It's the absolute best way to support the channel and enhance your connection. Join our amazing community and unlock the incredible perks, custom loyalty badges, exclusive emojis, and priority comment replies. Your voice will always stand out. Be the first to watch new videos with early access, receive special membership shoutouts, and get exclusive behind-the-scenes photos and updates. Dive into content available only to our members, special videos, deep dives, and insider perspectives. Engage directly with me. Suggest podcast topics you want to hear, and even get personalized video shoutouts. Hit the join button right now and become part of something special. Let's build this amazing community together. I can't wait to welcome you as a new member. Join the Joey Pinz family today.
yeah.
Is the publishing industry fair to authors?
No, it's so
Wow, that was
backwards.
quick. That was so quick. You didn't even think about it. No.
It is the most backwards industry, and I don't know why it hasn't changed and evolved in all these years. But when I was saying earlier about a bookstore can order 25 and send back to the publisher 24, that shouldn't be.
Wow.
In other retail, they order dresses, they can't send them back when they
Hmm.
don't sell.
Hmm.
They have to just mark them down to as
Right.
low as they can before they can get them sold. So, and um, you have to, libraries are only going, of course, they have a lot of shelf space issues, but they want to see you written up in Publishers Weekly before they'll even consider your book for the library. Now, a way to get around that is if you're doing an event and you donate your book to the library, then they'll put it in the system. And
Ah.
then if they get enough people to order it, then they'll start ordering it. So there are ways around that, but that doesn't help authors. The royalty payments don't help authors. It, and they don't want to change. They're just stuck in this world of this is how we always did it and never. And they also are very against using self-published books. Now, they will take on an author who has published their books if that author has proven to make a lot of money doing self-publishing.
Mm,
But
mm,
if an author has made a lot of money doing self-publishing, they're not likely to go to a traditional publisher. So,
right.
so yeah, I don't think the I think the traditional publishers need to change how they do things, but I don't think they're going to until they start losing money.
I
Uh,
mean, we see in music so when I was a kid, you and I were a kid, we'd go to a concert for relatively cheap, 5, 10,
right,
$20. And the idea of the concert was to sell the album because
right.
the money was made in album sales. Now it's the opposite. The music is pretty much given away and they make all the money
All
on
the
the
money
shows.
goes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but that's really not the way in books because there's no way to do that. There's no
no,
streaming.
no, there's no streaming. And if you're doing electronic version, it's there is Kindle Unlimited, which is kind of the streaming for
Yeah.
books,
Yeah.
but the author doesn't get money from that. The
Right.
publisher might get a little bit from that, but mostly Amazon makes its money from the Kindle Unlimited. So it is, yeah. So there isn't any way for unless people self-publish and sell the books themselves, they're not really going to make the money, and the industry isn't going to do anything different. So,
And how about
but
Audible? How about books being read? Are you a fan?
I am a fan because actually there are a lot of age groups, older people, kids, people who are jogging and want to listen to it while they're on the
Mm,
treadmill.
mm.
Those are markets that Audible is starting to reach. Now, it's one of those things that I am not able to help. Maybe you and I could do a partnership and you could help me because you know all that engineering behind the scenes. Um, and then I could, so I don't really know the process of
Mm.
making it into an audiobook, but I do recommend that authors should have all three versions because then it's reaching as many people as possible. Um,
So I've been told not to release the audio version right away because it kind of cannibalizes the sales of the book.
I don't know if that's true. I know authors that release all three versions all at the same time.
Hmm.
Um, Most of the time, they'll release the electronic first because they can set it at 99 cents and then you can do this blast on the day of the release and then you can get Amazon bestseller status by doing that. So they'll release the electronic version. A few days later, they'll release the print version, but they'll also release the audio around the same time. Now, I can also see the point where if they release the audio later, then they can have another release, and then it's
Hmm.
another launch and a lot of bang for the marketing bucks. So I do see the point in it. I don't know if it actually hurts people because different audiences are reading different versions.
Hmm.
Young people tend to read the electronic version. The people who are health conscious, they're going to download the audio version and not the print version. And then the print version are people like myself that like to have an actual book in my hand. I mean, I do have the Kindle app, but I do actually like to open a book. And I was at an event a few nights ago And they said that kids today, because they grew up in electronics all around them, they don't they're not getting the sensation of the of opening a book and flipping the pages. So
Hmm.
it's actually hurting their development because everything is on the computer or on their iPhone. Or so I thought that was interesting.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, it's so different now. And hardcover versus soft cover.
most people are not doing hardcover anymore because it's so expensive.
Right.
And I don't even think the traditional publishers are doing hardcover so much anymore. Again, it's very expensive to create a hardcover book versus the paper cost, the actual cover itself is expensive. So I think hardcover is going to start dying out. I
Hmm.
think it's on the fence right now, but most people aren't even buying it because they don't want to pay that much money for it. So, and it just sits on the shelf anyway. If it's paperback, you can give it to someone else, um, or you can donate it to those little boxes that are you see everywhere that says "Give a book, take a book." Those kind
Hmm.
of things.
Hmm.
Um, but the hardcover is harder to do that because they're so thick, and so I
I've
don't. I do not recommend my clients do hardcover,
hmm.
and none of them have asked me for hardcover. So, but once I tell them how much it costs, they're like, "Oh, okay."
Easy decision. About giving your book away, I read the statistics somewhere about, when you give a book away, there's like 20 to 30% chance they read it. But if you make them pay it, even a small amount, it goes up to 70 to 80%.
That's probably true, but the reason you give books away is not for the not. It's again a brand awareness and a marketing tool
Hmm.
because you give it away, you're going to get people to, especially if you give away the electronic version, you'll get people to read it, and then you'll get reviews for it, and then they'll tell other people who will buy it. You also give it away. This has not changed in the industry. You give away books to the media and so that they can review it. So that's another reason why you give it away. But there's a author in Florida who he gives away 1,000 copies of a book when it comes out. And and that's how he is able to get a large number of people to buy his books
Hmm.
because he gives them away and then somebody else is reading them and then they're telling other people. So that's what he always recommends is to give away 1,000 copies. Now I don't do that, and I most new authors don't have the money to do without give away 1,000 copies. But the more you give away, the more well known you become. So it's more of
Interesting.
a marketing tool.
So, Louise, given all of this, why would anybody want to write a book?
Well, because they have some kind of inner desire to get their story and be have their story heard.
I
That's
see.
that's it in a nutshell for people who are nonfiction writers. For fiction writers, it's more of a I have a creative outlet. I need to get my
Hmm.
creativity out there somehow. Also, I think there if you're a business owner or an entrepreneur, you can write a book and that'll make you instant an expert in your industry because you have
Hmm.
written a book, which isn't easy to do. I'm not making it sound like you can just type a few words and bingo, you have a book.
Right.
It is something that takes hard work and dedication. But if you do that and you own a HVAC and you wrote a book about how homeowners can keep their HVAC working for years to come, that shows that you're an expert in what you're doing. So it'll make it easier for you to get clients later because you can say, hey, I've written this and I'm let you know that I know what I'm talking about.
Hmm.
So I think that's the other reason most people write books is to show that they're an expert in what they do. But
You wrote your first poem when you were 12, Louise. You got paid for it. You went to university. In 92, you started Last Research and Editing. Who won't you work with at your firm?
I I've had some clients that I have not liked, and I'm glad they're gone. But, uh,
Why?
they one set of clients that I don't like are the ones that are very demanding and don't
Mm,
really let me do my job.
mm,
They And then there's the ones who are hand holding and they don't give me the space where they don't think I know what I'm doing. They're like, do this, do this, do this. And it's like, yeah, I will do it. Just, back off. Um, those are the two types of people that I really can't work with. I also don't work with people that don't align with my Christian values.
mm.
So if they are, well, I guess I'll just leave it at that. If they don't align with my Christian values, I won't work with them. But pretty much everybody else I will work with, and they don't have to have a lot of money. I will work with their budgets
Mm.
because I do understand struggling authors have trouble when they don't always have a lot of money. So I will, because it always leads to something later. If I do a good job on their first book, then later they'll come back to me and then I'll get more money and more money. So that's the way I think of it. Now, getting back to writing my poem at age 12, there was a contest in the local paper. Send in your poems and we'll give you $5. And in the 80s, $5 was a lot for a
Yeah.
12-year-old kid. so, so I got $5 for that poem. I sent in two, so I got $10. So, um, but
Not a
that
bad
was
deal.
yeah, but that was one of the ways my parents supported all of us, is if we wanted to do something like that, they would be okay and they would help us submit it. And so, but we weren't really, my sisters and my brother and I were not into sports, so my parents didn't have that. So
Mm.
when we had these other things, they would go ahead and do it for us. So that was always good with my parents. And
It's a shame when an industry treats its artists poorly, but this is nothing new. This has been happening
right.
for thousands of years, right? I mean, there's
Yes.
those that, you know, generally speaking, artists don't have a lot of business acumen. Generally speaking, I don't want to
Generally.
offend, yeah, I
Right.
don't
I
want to
agree
offend
with
it,
that.
yeah,
Yes.
because they're an artist, and those directions sometimes collide. But it is a shame because I love reading as well, and I love talking, and I love podcasting, I love interaction. Louise, has there been anything in the last month or so that you changed your mind on?
Changed my mind. Uh, well, I guess, I don't know. I don't think so. I, I was gonna, I actually agree with the tariffs, so that
Hmm.
would be it.
Oh, political, sure.
Well, on the tariffs, and I don't really like to get political, but before we had the 16th Amendment, which I'm constantly telling people we need to repeal, we taxed other people. We didn't
Mm,
tax us. so, uh, so that's how we got our income before we had the 16th Amendment. We taxed the foreigners. And so I don't see a reason why we can't go back to taxing the
interesting.
foreigners. The other reason why I think the tariffs are a good thing is because we're getting too reliant on the cheap materials from China. And that's making China pretty much owning our economy. And I don't think that's a good thing for the future of the United States. I think we need to start making things in this country again and not rely on materials or, you know, in my industry, it's people in India that are writing blogs for $1. That isn't going to help the writers that are in this country,
Mm.
because they're competing not only with the AI, but they're also competing with India and Philippines, where they can write very long articles for very little money.
Hmm.
So, I definitely think that we need to start bringing everything back into this country and not worry and not rely on things that are outside this country. Now, I also understand we're a global economy, and there are going to be things that we have to do with the foreign countries. And there are countries like Canada that are really more like America's anyway. So, I do understand it's not as simple as no and yes, but it's one of those things that I do agree with. But um, I guess I've been changed about the Pope, and I know he's new. I heard that he was, well. One thing, that he's very sports oriented, so I find that's funny about a
Yeah,
Pope.
from Chicago.
Um, but he um, apparently he supports things that I don't support, and I don't like that. So but I didn't know that that was the case until I talked to people. So that actually was something that changed in my mind,
Hmm.
because I was supporting him and now I'm not. So, well, I kind of have to, but anyway.
But good people can still disagree, Louise.
Yeah, I
That's
agree.
that's that's
And actually, I am very 100% in favor of the free First Amendment, the
of
free
course.
press, because we need to have discussions. We need people to not be afraid to disagree with someone else, because that is why we have that First Amendment. So you can talk and get your opinion out there. And it has been for so many years. People would be so afraid to say anything that disagreed with someone else.
Hmm.
And like the tariffs, I think that is also hurting our country, where we're relying on China for materials. We're also being afraid to say things when we actually have freedom to say things. And we could go, even in England, you cannot say things that go against the king.
They don't have the
They
First Amendment. Yeah.
they don't have the First Amendment.
Yeah.
So this is a right that we should not give up. And this is the reason why podcasters, they can say whatever they want, and writers can write whatever they want, and people can attend a rally and just talk and and disagree with others. And I think it's a wonderful thing, and I think that's one of the things that is slowly going away, and it scares me.
Hmm. So I started my business, Louise, in the 90s, and I was working way too hard as a tech company supporting networks, small businesses. The technical landscape was very different in the 90s
Right.
than it is
This
now.
is the
And
beginnings of websites.
oh, there wasn't even, yeah, there was no,
Yeah.
yeah, very, very beginning parts of the World Wide Web. Uh, and working 14-hour days, and uh, I'm in front of the doctor, and she tells me that I'm at 340 pounds, and if I don't lose this weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. So it scared the life out of me, because it's not just myself anymore. It's, I have a family now, and I have to be there for them. So I'm driving home angry at myself, punching the steering. What have I done to myself? This is my pie hole. I did this. So the next 6, 7 months, I lost about 120 pounds, excuse me. And I kept it off. You can't look at it as a finishing line. You got to make kind of
Right.
lifelong changes. And when I ask people, when I tell people about this, they always say the same thing. What's your secret? What'd you do? And there's no secret, Louise. I always say discipline. I got focused. I got motivation, willpower. How does discipline play a role in your life, Louise Harris?
You have to be disciplined to be a writer.
Mm.
One of the things that scares people who want to write a book, but they're scared to do it, is they think it's daunting. They think, oh, it has to be 150 pages or 250 pages, and that's a big number. So, but if you're disciplined, then you're going to think of it as I'm only going to write 10 pages a day. And then each day I will write my 10 pages, and then I will eventually have a finished book. And then it isn't so daunting anymore. You also have to be disciplined to get up every morning, even when you're tired, you have to write something. And you have to do what you need to do, even if you're tired. And so that is the second part of the discipline of being a writer. And you have to work on those client projects that you don't always like to work on. And I have a few of those. And so that's discipline. But it's easier to write a book if you break it down. And if you also remember that books are 6 by 9 or 5.5 by 8.5. So they're half pages, actually. So the 10 pages you're writing are really 5 half pages. So it makes it a lot easier for new authors to finish or even start, because that is the hardest thing for them to do, is they stare at the computer and they can't get started. And the way I say that is just write anything. It doesn't matter if it's what was on your outline, just put it on the computer, on the paper, whatever way you write, just put something down, and then that'll break your mind and you'll start creating what you really need to create. But I do that a lot, where I will get away from my computer, open a notebook, and I'll just start putting something on there. And then I'll look at it later and say, oh, okay, now I understand where that's supposed to fit in, or how I can use that. Or one of my other favorite things about writer's block is bouncing a ball. That's because you bounce a ball and you're doing something that's repetitive, but it's not using your brain. So then it breaks your writer's block, and you start getting creative juices flowing.
Interesting.
Yeah, I have used that one all through my career. When I couldn't figure out how to start a story for the environmental newsletters that I wrote, I would take out my ball and I'd start bouncing it. And then I would be able to rework what I needed to work. So
should authors be afraid of the blank page?
I don't think so, because it just means that it needs to be filled with something. And all you have to do is start filling it. And even if what you put on the blank page is not what you eventually use in your book, it helps you get past that stage fright, because that's what it is. It's stage fright, only it's for computers. I mean, authors. But I'm sure when you were first doing your first podcast, you probably had a little stage fright.
Still do.
And how do you break your stage fright?
Being prepared.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What motivates you, Louise?
My family and my faith, and knowing that this is what I'm meant to do. But everything I've ever done, I've done because my husband has always supported me, and my kids, now they might laugh at me, but they do actually appreciate what I do. When they were in school and I would look at their papers and I would start editing their papers, and they didn't like it so much, but
you can't help yourself though, right?
No. No, I couldn't. And my one son, he wrote really badly, so he needed an editor. My daughter, not so much, and she would get mad when I would edit her stuff. But my other son, he was able to write, but he was very science, because he was into weather, and he went into data analytics. So he just needed it to be cleaned up a little bit. But my son David, he just didn't like school at all. So he just wrote something on paper and it was not always good. So, but yeah, they didn't appreciate that I would correct them, but now they do. Now
Now
that
they
they're all
do. Of
adults,
course.
yeah.
Yes. It comes around. Yeah. So, given the motivation of faith and family, how do you measure success?
I measure success if I'm happy what I'm doing,
Hmm.
and whether I get enough money or not, I want to be able to pay my bills, and I do pay my bills. But anything over that is a blessing. I don't have to have it. So I am, if I'm happy doing what I'm doing, I feel successful. So
Hmm. Want to show your love for discipline, inspiration, and the Joey Pinz podcast? Now's your chance. Introducing the brand new Joey Pinz merch store, where style meets discipline. Choose from premium apparel, cozy hoodies, stylish hats, durable bags, and your new favorite coffee mug, all featuring the iconic Joey Pinz logo. Perfect for podcast fans, discipline enthusiasts, or as unique gifts for friends and family. Every purchase supports the Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations podcast, helping us continue to inspire greatness and promote positive change. Visit joeypins.com/store today and wear your discipline proudly. Joey Pinz merch. Wear it, share it, and live it. Well, I love reading. I love talking to authors. I love talking to fiction authors and nonfiction authors. I hope the industry will change. I don't think it will. I think we as the marketing public can get together somehow and help. I'm not sure how, but I love what you're doing. More people need to do it. Louise, thank you so much for your time. Anybody watching or listening, how can they get in touch with you?
they can visit my website, lastresearchandediting.com. They can call me. I always answer my phone, 480-370-3945. They can email me, which they can get from the website.
Lastresearchandediting.com. You're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, which is X. Of course, Amazon has your books there. And
I have an author page on Amazon as well.
you have an
So
author. Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Next time I'm in St. Petersburg area, which I am often, I'll let you know. We'll have a cup of tea.
that would be great. And I did notice that we connected on LinkedIn. So that's great too. And so I look forward to meeting you in person.
Very
And
cool. Thank you so
so nice
much,
to
Louise.
meet
You have a great day.
you too.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information. The video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.